The following is brought to you by FMC. Learn more by visiting ag.fmc.com.
Well, it's the fall. There's lots happening when it comes to harvest, but there's a lot of other things we got to do and think about agronomically on the farm in the fall time period, because it really relates to what happens in this case, 2026, next spring. And it's hard to got to wear multiple hats here, thinking ahead. We're going to talk about some agronomic issues here today with Deanna McLennan, who is one of FMC's technical sales managers, and she is based out of Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. Deanna, how are we doing?
I'm doing well, thanks.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess let's start off high level here. Agronomically, why fall applications when it comes to weed control?
We do find fall is the best time of year to get the most out of some of the active ingredients to control some of the perennial weeds in the fall, but also to set ourselves up for next spring with some of the extended weed control products. With some of our Burnoff brands, when we're thinking of perennial weeds, fall is the best time since these weeds are beginning to overwinter. They're starting to translocate water and nutrients down into their root systems. So when we apply a herbicide that has systemic activity, we can take advantage of this movement, and that herbicide will move down into the root systems to deliver the best control possible. And then with the products in our extended weed control herbicide portfolio, so those are the soil applied products, fall application can help us get more consistent activation in the spring, since these products do require moisture to activate. So when we apply these products in the fall, we're guaranteeing early activation with snowmelt.
Yeah. So and full realization here, there are some falls where weather works against you, and this decision, Mother Nature decides for you, and you get pushed to spring.
Yes.
What we're talking about here is when it's within your control, it's the decision, do I take care of, I'm done harvest, or I got a bit of a break here, what can I do today? Really consider fall weed control versus being a procrastinator like I am and pushing it off to the springtime, especially when we're talking about, like, for example, dandelions. That's a great example of where fall is such a better time to take care of them than waiting till spring.
Yes, but it definitely is hard to find the time to make these applications in the fall. I know everyone's done with the year, done with 2025 and wants to move on, but it really is the best time to be, I guess, setting ourselves up the best for 2026.
Yeah.
But I get the tendency to just wrap it up for the year.
Oh, I have that tendency, and I would have to break it. Okay, so there's some different options here. So we decide the time. We know we want to do this in the fall. There's the option of going with either like a burn-off or a soil applied. Now, these two main approaches growers can take in the fall here, like I said. Can you walk us through the differences and when maybe each of those approaches make the most sense?
Okay, yes. So fall burn-off and the soil applied herbicide applications, they're made at sort of different times in the fall and are targeting different weed stages. So the burn-off applications, they're made earlier in the fall, so closer to right when the combine moved off the field, and are targeting emerged weeds. So for that timing, we want to make sure the weeds are still out there and actively growing, so they'll translocate that product, ideally, deep down into the root system. So we should be making those applications on the warm and sunny days. And if we're running into any frost events, I guess giving those plants a few days to recover before going out and spraying them. And then for the extended weed control herbicides, those applications can help happen later in the fall. So like after Thanksgiving would kind of be one of the time frames we use. So these herbicides are being applied directly to the soil, and we are targeting, I guess, next year's weeds that haven't germinated yet. Okay. So in the spring, once these products activate, we'd expect like 4 to 6 weeks of control in the spring then.
So there we're working for the carryover, like the
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's just, because we talk about this a lot with, like, say, anhydrous ammonia, timing and temperature are important. So let's just once again go through those timing considerations for both those, just so we have it straight.
Yes. So for the fall extended weed control applications, another guideline we use is waiting until the soil temperatures dip down to below 10 degrees. So the reason why we want to wait until that soil temperature is lower is because these products are broken down by microbial degradation. So if we wait until we have cooler soil temperatures, if that product does happen to get activated, any breakdown would be minimal because the microbes are kind of shut down for the winter at that point. However, I will say that is just a guideline since it's so hard to know how much time we'll have in the fall. Like we don't know when we're getting that first snowfall or once it will freeze. So if there's like an Alberta clipper in the forecast and the soil temperatures are slightly too high, I would recommend going out and making that application if you have a good spray day. And with these extended weed control products, after we apply them, those products will just sit on the soil surface. They won't go anywhere. They won't bind to the green crop or weed material, and they don't break down by sunlight. So they'll be sitting there waiting until next spring.
Let's assume I've followed your timing recommendation. I've done a soil applied. I'm now in the spring of 2026. I can't believe it's already here. What are my expectations when I'm in that time period?
Okay, so in the next spring, once that snow melts, that snow and that moisture will move the active ingredients into the upper layers of the soil profile. And then that herbicide active ingredients will be available there. It'll be available in the soil water. So any weeds that germinate in that layer or just slightly above that layer would take the product up through their root systems, and then those weeds would be affected. One thing to note is some weeds do germinate from very deep in the soil, like thinking of wild oats, they can germinate from super deep. So if a wild oat were to germinate below that layer, it wouldn't be taking up the product through the root system, so it could just grow through it. So one recommendation would be, I guess with no-till systems, we do see the weed seeds closer to the soil surface. They don't get as buried, so that can help with the product performance. And since these soil actives are held in the soil water, we do need to get some subsequent moisture events for them to be available. So we do need the odd rain to help and recharge to carry these active ingredients in the water.
Oh, so we need Mother Nature to cooperate in the
I know,
fall,
we do need
and
rain.
we need Mother Nature to cooperate in the spring.
Yes, we do.
Okay. So let's talk about key factors to remember here. Are there any tips or suggestions, parameters growers should be aware of when they're using soil applied products?
Okay, so we wanted to cover here how the FMC herbicides are affected by the soil texture, organic matter, and pH in our different soil types. So the active ingredients in our Authority brand herbicides and Focus, in the soil, they bind to the organic matter and clay particles. So if we've got a lighter texture soil with lower organic matter, that soil will have fewer binding sites for these actives, whereas like a heavier textured clay soil would have more binding sites. So if we apply the same rate of product onto the heavier textured soil, we'd have less product available in the soil water since more would be bound to the clay and the organic matter. And then we also have soil pH that also influences how these active ingredients are available in the soil water. So for our brands, so the Authority brands and Focus, when we have higher pHs, the active ingredients are more available. I don't want to get into why, because that's super, super technical, but that's just
over my head anyway. It doesn't matter.
All good. But just in essence, that's why we structure our rates and the restrictions on our labels the way we do. Some of our product rates are based off of soil organic matter, since we need those higher rates on the heavier soils. And then that's also why we have some pH restrictions as well.
Okay. So is it a good idea then if I am thinking about doing soil applied herbicides, that I have a soil test, I know my pH, I know my soil type, and I talk to my agronomist about that kind of up front, and to make sure that that's in line with the product performing at its top ability?
Yeah, definitely. Especially from field to field, there can be so much variation, and your agronomist would be able to walk you through that.
Okay, I actually wouldn't have thought of that. So I think that's a great. Maybe that's something that growers think about all the time, but I think that's a really good point. we're trying to make this you want to be as effective as possible, right? So when we talk about, hey, it costs this per acre to apply this product, whether that's the fall burn-off or that's the soil applied herbicide, we want to make sure that whatever one we're choosing, we're getting the biggest bang for our buck, right? We're making sure that we're giving it all the opportunity to perform at the highest level possible. So the audience is across a wide spectrum here. So for those who may be thinking about fall applications for the first time, what advice would you give to them in addition here to really make sure that they're getting that maximum result?
Okay, so for those soil applied applications, once that layer has been applied across the soil surface, we don't want to be disturbing it. So complete any other passes, so tillage or heavy harrowing, before you go out with your sprayer. We also recommend, our products can be applied with glyphosate if you want to, get advantage or use the fall to get that heavier burn down control of perennials, but you don't need to apply glyphosate. They can all be applied by alone. Again, get that soil test and double check that you're applying the correct rate for your soil characteristics or next year's crop. To get good, smooth coverage across the soil surface with our soil applied products, we do recommend using 10 gallons of water just to get an even layer. We also do recommend using 50 mesh screens as well, just because these are clay-based products, so they do need a wider screen. And I know I have been talking about how great fall applications are, but spring applications can be a better choice in certain scenarios. Thinking of sunflowers or soybean fields in Manitoba, those are planted later in the spring there. So a spring application might line up better for when those crops, the later seeded crops, are emerging and when the weeds are germinating. Or if you're someone that has a higher disturbance drill, with openers greater than 2 inches, we would recommend spring application just to avoid some striping in that layer.
Oh, great stuff. Well, Deanna, thanks so much for joining us here today. Really appreciate it. This is an important discussion, as we know that weeds left in the field, allowed to perform at their maximum result, they're taking away yield from us. And if they're taking away yield, they're taking away money, and we don't like that in today's time. So, Deanna, thanks so much for joining us here today.
No problem. Thank you.
For the latest ag news, agronomic advice, and more, check out realagriculture.com and Real Ag Radio.